We have made tremendous progress in our understanding of cardiovascular disease, and in fact at the population level, we do know that risk factors such as high blood pressure and high cholesterol can explain up to 90% of the risk. However, when it comes to specific patients, it's very difficult to predict which patient will go on to have the disease and which one won't.
Dr. Guillaume Paré and the team at the Population Health Research Institute in Hamilton are on a hunt for genetic clues to unlock the remaining mysteries of heart disease. They're using a forensic facility that rivals any CSI lab. Blood and DNA from hundreds of thousands of people around the world, stored in a deep freeze, all managed by Dr. Matt McQueen.
There are about 3 million samples. They are from over 70 countries, 5 continents, and 5 major ethnic groups in the world. These aren't just samples that have been stored. They are samples that are well characterized, so we know all the details, the person's illness, what the outcome in the study was, what treatment they received, a whole variety of other information.
Investigators can now reopen the oldest case files of all, human DNA. Genetic variations can have a major effect on how we respond to risk factors like cholesterol, inflammation, and blood pressure. They may also have answers for a high-risk group that's increasing rapidly, people with diabetes. 1 in 9 adults now have it, and their heart risk is 3 times higher than a person without the disease. Specialist Dr. Herzl Gerstein is on the team.
So there's no broad agreement on why there is an increased risk of cardiovascular disease in people with diabetes, but there are a number of candidates, and we at PHRI here are trying to investigate and better characterize what these candidates are and better understand and hopefully solve the puzzle of why people with diabetes are at higher risk for cardiovascular as well as other serious health problems.
They are now running a DNA study of 5,500 diabetic patients, searching for genes involved in their heart disease risk. Once identified, the genes will become targets for new treatments. It's a big job.
One of the greatest challenges we're facing right now in human genetics is really a big data problem. Right now, we can sequence all human genomes in 3 days and generate a considerable amount of data, but what do we do with this data? How do we identify these mutations that could be important to health and disease within the tens of millions of mutations that were identified? It's a bit like trying to find a needle in the haystack. We have identified about 50 genes involved in heart disease, but we estimate that over 1,000 genes are involved. Once we'll have identified all of these genes, we will be in a great position to identify individuals and families at risk and perhaps to better treat them as well.
Genes and aging are heart disease risk factors we can't control so far. But there is one risk factor we can work on that will have a positive effect on all the others.
We know that for people who exercise daily, throughout midlife into later life, these people very rarely get heart attacks and strokes. Our own research has shown that diet and exercise can contribute to keeping inflammation down, they contribute to keeping blood pressure down, they contribute to keeping cholesterol down, and all of these are contributing in a very important way.
Who hasn't been told by their doctor to get out and exercise? But how many of us actually take that advice?
You think about how hard it is to get people to be more active. What could we do? So we proposed a challenge, and in class somebody came up with a 7-minute app that has you do 12 30-second workouts with 10-second breaks, and it's got push-ups and squats and lunges and triceps.
This is my favorite thing to do, lunges.
Oh, those are good.
Go to the other side.
Let's make this the social norm in the class, that it is acceptable to get up and move, because honestly, as health professionals, it should be unacceptable to sit still for 2 hours and listen to me rant on and on.
It's not enough for us to sit at our hospital and talk about this. We need to get into the community and say the biology of this disease tells us that if I can get people in their teens and 20s and 30s into exercising regularly, we just won't have as much diabetes, we won't have as much heart disease, we'll have fewer need for the angioplasties and the surgeries that my cardiovascular colleagues are so good at providing. It's a win-win if we do it right.
Go right.
The search to catch new culprits in the heart disease crime wave continues. Cholesterol is implicated, but there are other suspects still at large, each one a menace on its own. And together, this gang can be lethal. Be on the lookout.
Is reason losing to irrationality?
We call it in psychology the illusion of control.
This stuff works. Superstitious Minds. Doxo, next on CBC.
Who wants to play Remedy or Ripoff?
The rules are simple.
Which ones do you think are remedies or a ripoff? Remedy.
The prize? Tips to help you know the